Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Burchmore. I'm based at the Australian National University in Canberra. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the article I wrote for the current issue of the magazine. So in the article, I consider the use of flowers and porcelain by two contemporary Chinese artists, Ai Weiwei, who you probably all know, in his work Blossom, which perhaps some of you don't know, that he completed in 2014, and also Guo-Qiang, who's another very well-known artist, usually associated with firework displays and massive installations, but again, I considered maybe a less well-known work of his, Transience Peony 1, which he created in 2019 for an exhibition at the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne, here in Australia. And I consider these works as political critiques, and the artist's use of flowers and porcelain as materials of political critique, respectively exposing what I call the cruelty of incarceration and the hubris of authoritarianism. I wanted to show that both flowers and porcelain can express so much more than the superficial or the sentimental qualities with which they're often associated. So thinking about why I chose these artists and these particular works, I'm a scholar of Chinese contemporary art, and I focused for my doctoral research on the use of porcelain by Ai Weiwei, Guo-Qiang, as well as other artists, other contemporary Chinese artists who worked with the medium. So I know their work very well, and I've been studying it for the last 6 years, so I'm quite familiar with their works. I also wanted to draw attention to an often overlooked aspect of their practice. As I mentioned, both of the works that I look at are relatively little known at the moment. Both of these artists are best known for their spectacular installations, but both have created many more subtle and sort of more low-key pieces, but they're equally powerful, I feel, and I wanted to draw that out with the article. Thinking about what the topic of this issue means for me, the idea of plants. I grew up in the English countryside in a family of farmers, so I've always been very kind of respectful of the resilience of plants and the power of nature, I suppose. And now living in Australia's bush capital, so called because we're surrounded by what we call bush here, which is essentially, I'm not sure if it's called the same in Canada, but it's essentially trees, scrubland, lots of nature. We recently had some quite devastating bushfires as well a couple of months ago, which were reported on quite extensively in the US, I think, and perhaps in Canada too. So that really brought home again, the power of nature, but also the resilience of plants and their ability to heal after a crisis like that, as well as these larger cycles, which is something I explore in the article, is these larger cycles of growth and blossoming and decay and death, but also rebirth. So emerging from the ashes and kind of coming out new. And this is something that I feel plants very much can teach us, and that we can learn from plants and from nature. I hope I've done justice to this resilience and this idea of cyclic change in my article, showing clearly what I hope is the great potential for artistic expression, as well as the extent to which plants can offer us some solace and some sense of comforting reassurance in times of crisis like this. So it's even more important, I think, at the moment, although a subject maybe like plants or flowers or porcelain, perhaps some people might think it's quite a trivial thing to consider at a time of crisis like this, but it's in plants and it's in flowers that I feel we can find a great hope and a great sense of coming out of these disasters, to blossom again. So I hope that you enjoy my article, and I hope that it can bring you some sense of solace and some sense of reassurance. Thanks.